So thank you again for spending your Saturday morning with us, and thank you for saying yes to AFS and being a host family. You'll notice that most of the information that we're going to talk about today is in the AFS Host Family Handbook, and it's online as well as in the material that you received. So there's nothing new, there's nothing that should be a surprise, or nothing that you couldn't find more detail in the handbook about that we're going to talk about today. But today is kind of two-pronged. So part of it is to go through that material, which is required by this chapter for AFS. But part of the function and the reason we're here today is for you all to meet each other, to meet other host families. You'll hear where everyone lives in the valley and where their students are coming from. This will give you a chance to network, meet other families in your area. There's going to be some events throughout the year that you might want to carpool. And it's also a chance for you to start meeting some of your support volunteers from AFS. Most of your contact probably so far has been with the hosting committee, and so now is an opportunity to start meeting some of the other volunteers of the organization that will support you throughout the year. All right, well, AFS is as a volunteer organization, and is comprised of many volunteers. As I mentioned, you probably have met, and most certainly have met the hosting volunteers. But there's volunteers that support sending students. There's volunteers that support identifying students to bring into the chapter for you to host. There's some volunteers that are involved with organizing some of the events that occur throughout the year. The trip to the Grand Canyon and other social events for the families. And there are volunteers who are your liaisons. We're going to talk more about the liaisons in a few minutes and what their function and what their role is. And you're volunteers. You're volunteering a year to participate in the AFS organization. And I think I recognize some faces. How many of you have hosted before? Oh, a couple of you. And how many of you have participated in Phoenix Weekend maybe and were hosts for a Phoenix Weekend? So there's a lot of you who have already had a taste of the experience and know how much excitement and fun it is to learn about another culture and another community. So you're going to meet some of the other volunteers that are here today along with myself. The AFS volunteers believe in the mission and promote learning and intercultural learning in 40 different cultures. So it isn't just the United States and a couple other countries in Europe. It's throughout the world. This is a global organization. And all of the local AFS volunteers for our chapter are not paid. They're volunteers. And AFS is the second largest volunteer organization in the world, second to the Red Cross. So you're in good company here with AFS today. And I would like to take a minute, just because this is really a good opportunity for you to start meeting some of the support. I would like to have the volunteers that are here with AFS maybe stand up, introduce yourself, what committee you work on, what sort of area you're working in. You want to start with you, Judy?
Thank you. I'm Judy Appleyard, and I have met some of you because I'm currently volunteering on the hosting committee. And it started with AFS, and please do any math, but it was back in '69 when I had a brother from Denmark. So I have quite a history. More recently, our family hosted a student from Germany in the 04-05 year. So welcome.
My name is Nancy Spurko, and I've been a volunteer for a while. We've hosted 2 boys from Germany and many students for shorter periods from all over the world. I've been doing support for the chapter for many years, and I will not be doing it next year. I'll be in the kitchen helping. So good luck. It's a wonderful journey.
Hi, I'm April Murphy, and let's see, our family loves AFS. We've hosted 6 times, and I've held a few different volunteer positions. This year I get to be the president. Thanks, guys. Thanks for letting me. I sent 3 of my daughters on a study abroad to Finland, Belgium, and Italy. So,
I'm Beth Whiteley, and I've been involved in AFS for 2 years now. Absolutely also been a liaison, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've had a young gal from Madrid and this year from Macedonia, and it's totally enriched my life. Have fun.
Well, we're hosting this year, but, I'm sorry.
And you're also.
We've been involved with AFS since 2005, and we hosted, this will be our 5th time, Finland, Egypt, Indonesia, France, and now Thailand. So we're really excited, and I help with the social committee and have done a little work on hosting this year, which has been really, really nice. So we're glad to be hosting again.
I'm Carol Meiser, and I have worked on hosting for a long time and really enjoy it. We have hosted 3 times, and 2 of our 3 children have gone abroad with AFS. And we've had lots of interim, short-term kids that we've hosted. It's one of the most enriching things we've ever done as a family. We absolutely just feel our lives have been blessed to meet all of these kids, and now they're young adults, some of them starting their own families, and it's just fun to watch the progression. And you realize that there is just so much connection person to person. Our governments may do different things that don't always make us as friendly as we'd like to be, but on a personal level, people are people, and it's those personal connections that I think help work toward peace. Thank you.
I'm Kayla Resnick. I'm a returnee. I was in Brazil in 03 and 04, so it's been a little while. I'm currently a liaison, and I volunteered with Phoenix Weekend, and also was one of the chaperones on the Grand Canyon trip, which all your students will get to go on. Next year I'm going to be one of the 2 people taking over for Judy, so it's a big job and I'm pretty excited about it. So you'll be seeing a lot of me.
And I'll introduce myself because I left that out in the very beginning. My name is Laura Zioni, and we volunteered probably for the last 4 years, but we've hosted, so I guess I'm kind of a volunteer. We've hosted also. This last year was our 4th time hosting with AFS. And our daughter's here today, and you'll hear from her in a little bit. So we're real believers in how this can positively impact your whole family and your whole life. This organization is the best thing that's probably happened to our family in a long time. And that's my husband. He's a volunteer as well. Sorry. Got you off. All right, so
I carry the briefcases.
All right, so icebreaker. Now you probably all immediately think, what when you see icebreaker?
A ship.
Oh. You looked ahead. So what we think of as an icebreaker is usually a get to know you kind of activity, right? But that just goes to show you as an example, the English language is pretty tricky. And we have a lot of these weird little phrases like icebreaker that may mean different things to different people. If you're from Finland or in the audience, you may think of a ship that's going to go through and break the ice so that other ships can get through. If you're a bartender, not speaking from experience, you may think an icebreaker is something, to make a cocktail, you're going to break the ice. If you've been to the grocery store, you might think an icebreaker is a brand of gum and candy. So it can mean a lot of things, and there's a lot of words like that. There's words that sound exactly the same but are spelled differently. There's words that are spelled exactly the same and pronounced differently depending on how you're using them in the English language. So it's something that you might not even be aware of. But boy, when you have a student that English is not their first language, you become aware of these weird phrases that we use all the time that mean very different things or don't translate well at all. So as an introduction, we are actually going to do an icebreaker activity. And I would like to go around the room and have someone from each family stand up, introduce your family, tell us the student's name, the student that you're hosting, their name, and what country they're from, what high school they're going to attend, and one reason why you would like to host. So we can start over here and go from right to left. So pick someone from your family.
Hi, my name is Andrea Parker Swenson, and my husband Thomas, and my daughter Olivia. And I'm just thinking, all the questions I've just said, we're hosting, who we're hosting? Oh, yeah. Yes,
The cheat sheet.
right up there, okay? So we're hosting Dara, forgot her last name, I might not be able to pronounce it, but she's from Finland. And she's going to be attending Arizona School for the Arts, which is where Olivia goes. And she's going to be a junior next year. And the reason we decided to host, well, we had a fabulous time doing the weekend hosting with Julia, so we're just saying it's all because of her. But we actually got interested in it the year before, and but it was very late in the game, and really we decided, we just thought it would be something that would really enrich our family and got really interested in it. And we didn't quite find the placement and the student all at the same time, so we kind of missed out last year on the whole thing, and we're just really so excited that we got to host Julia for a weekend. We said, all right, we'll do it this year. So.
And where do you live? What?
We live over in Mesa, but kind of Mesa Tempe area.
Oh, very nice. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
My name is Shelley, and my husband's not here because he's working today. And this is my daughter, Ryan. And we also have another daughter who's not here because she's out of town. So this is my daughter, Ryan. And we hosted one other time a gal from Germany and had a fantastic experience. So we live in North Scottsdale, and we'll be hosting Tomoya from Japan. And he'll be going to Desert Mountain High School with Ryan.
So the Jarvis family, Dana, Ron, Caden. We don't know our student's name yet. We're still unknown, still searching. What we do know is that it'll be Great Hearts in Goodyear, Arizona, the school that they will be attending. The reason we decided to host, this will be our 4th time. Like we heard many times in the room, I mean, it's just enriched our life every time. He's been talking about it for many years, and we decided to do it again, so we're looking forward to it.
When was the last time you hosted?
Probably about 17 years ago.
Very nice. Very nice. Was it with AFS?
Twice with AFS, and I forget the other organization that,
Very nice. Well, certainly glad to have you back. Yes.
My name's Cullen. This is my husband, German. We are hosting Tjark from Germany. This is our first time hosting. He'll be attending Thunderbird High School. And we decided to host because I was a short-term exchange student in high school to Japan. I had brothers who did full-year exchanges in high school to Australia and New Zealand. And we're just kind of at a stage in our life where it enriched my family growing up hosting students and seeing my brothers do it and myself. And so we just want to give it a try, and we're really looking forward to it. So.
Hi, I'm Greg Swartz. My wife is dropping off 2 of our 3 boys to go to Camp Geronimo Boy Scout Camp, so she'll be here shortly. We also have our oldest boy is up at Camp Geronimo as a counselor. So I'm it for right now, but my wife will show up in a minute. We are hosting the Johann from Germany, and we're very excited about it. We live at Central and Camelback, it's very close by. The reason why we did it, first of all, my wife had done the exchange to Germany and hosted an exchange while she was in high school, also from Germany. And we're just looking forward to doing it. We're at a point in our lives where the 3 bathrooms we have in our house and the 3 bedrooms is just too much space for us. We're going to bring another boy. So we're looking forward to it, and I anticipate this will be the first of several times we'll do this.
Could you remind us where they're going to go to school?
Oh, I'm sorry, they're going to Sunny Slope.
Oh, Sunny Slope. Very nice.
So this is my husband, Alan, and I said before we had hosted, this year we're going to be hosting a boy. He has a long name, but has a nickname, and his nickname is Pete. So I'm going to call him Pete. And Pete is from Thailand, and he'll be attending Madison Highland Prep, which Julia attended this year and had a great year. Yes, and Lily. Mm-hmm. So we're excited about that, and it's a STEM school, STEM high school. So, and our students really interested in robotics and some of the things that they offer there. So I think it'll be a great, I hope it'll be a great match. And we decided to host because it's always different and it's always really good. And we didn't know much about Thailand, so that's just a culture that we wanted to find out about. So that's why we picked it. And then also we think we'd like to travel to Thailand. That's kind of selfish. But yeah, actually this summer in July, we're going to go to, our first exchange student from Finland is getting married in Helsinki. So we're going there for his wedding. So it just keeps going. Anyway, that's what we're doing.
I'm Sarah Fleury, this is my husband Charles, and we are hosting Jeremy from France, and he will go to Sunny Slope High School. We decided, we have two girls who are now in college, and we looked into this when our oldest daughter was a freshman, and then she got real selfish and decided she didn't want to do it. So over the years, we had toyed with the idea, and now that we have our one final installment, Charlie, home, he's actually in Pine Top working, we decided we would go ahead and host, and he's just way too spoiled. I do everything for him, so he needs some companionship. And we are really happy that Jeremy is from France because we also want to visit there someday.
My name's Steve, this is Adalia, Zoli, and Anita. We're first-time host families, although we know several families that have hosted through various organizations, and they all spoke very, very highly of the experience. So we figured we'll throw our hat in the ring and see what happens. On top of that, Anita came from Hungary herself, so she understands the importance of cultural change and immersion and things like that to just gain the entire experience. So we figured why not? We're going to host Maya from Germany. I know the only thing we really know about her right now is that she is into gymnastics, as my daughter is, so hopefully there's going to be a very good connection there. And they're going to go where? Mountain Ridge? They're going to go near Mountain Ridge. We live in northern Peoria.
Hi, I'm Olivia, and Olivia Graber, and this is my mom, Mindy, and my dad, Bill. And we're going to host Anna Vogel from Germany. And she's going to be attending Cactus Shadows, which is where I go. I think we wanted an exchange student mostly because we thought it'd be cool to have another member of the family and have a sister. And I want to be an exchange student too, so I think having her would be like a good experience for both of us, and I could learn a lot.
We're the Berries. I'm Adam. My wife Anya, John, and Ella. We are hosting Ahmed from West Bank. He'll be attending Chaparral High School, and we live just a couple miles from there. We just decided really quick, maybe 2 weeks ago, that we were going to do it. So this will be our first time. We have other families that we know that have done it, so it's been a great experience.
All right, did I miss anybody? Did we miss anybody? Very good. Well, I'm going to have my daughter read the AFS mission statement. Can you read it from there?
Oh, was I supposed to stand up here?
You can. You can either read it from here or you can read it on the slide.
Okay. AFS works toward a more just and peaceful world by providing international intercultural learning experience to individuals, families, schools, and communities through a global volunteer partnership.
Thank you. So even though you're thinking this is about a student coming to America, they're coming here to get the American experience, they're going to an American high school, this is really about intercultural learning and experiences for everybody. Not just for the individual student that's coming, not just for you, for your whole family, for everyone that student interacts with at school, their teachers. Maybe it's the school's first time to host. Julia was the first AFS student or exchange student at the high school that she went to. And the communities, the more you get involved, the more people that are touched by the whole AFS mission. So it's a global mission to really foster intercultural learning and experiences. All right, so some keys for success. Now these are not going to be like earth-shattering surprises. Wow, I wouldn't have ever thought of that. These are really things that are keys to any successful relationship or change. If you're moving to a new city, if you're starting a new job, I mean, these are the things that are important, I think, for success in anything we do. And it's certainly important in this particular situation where you're bringing another person into your family from a different culture. When we say acceptance of culture, not just acceptance of the culture itself, but acceptance of cultural differences. And the fact that every culture brings its own unique aspects and myths and beliefs and values to it. Certainly being flexible is always a good thing. And again, like I said, even though they're coming here to get the American experience, you're going to have to meet halfway at least some of the time, and help foster an environment where everyone can learn and grow. A little bit of patience is always helpful because things won't happen overnight. No change happens overnight, and certainly when someone is coming into a strange situation with very different rules and different rules of engagement than their own and than what they're used to, it does take some time. And it'll take time for you too. Even though it's your home and your environment, it's going to be different having a different person as part of your family and sharing in your family's environment and activities. Having some level of curiosity, I think, is always helpful. And wanting to understand, wanting to experience new things, and having a curiosity about life and culture and differences. The exchange students we've had that have been most successful are those that want to try everything. I just love that. I love that about Julia. Everywhere we go, do you guys want to try an escape room? Do you want to try? Yeah, let's try it. So to have that curiosity is helpful for them, but it's helpful for you too. Maybe your student will want to cook you an authentic meal from their culture or from their country. And having that curiosity to learn more about it, I think, will help everybody to assimilate, and it makes small issues not become big issues. And lastly, a good sense of humor, I think, is always helpful. Otherwise, things that are small could fester and become bigger problems. But I think if you just take everything with a grain of salt and realize that everyone's doing their best and trying to assimilate with changing environments, I think then that's a good key to success. As I mentioned when we all started, these are some additional keys to success. Communicate, 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 communicate. And I know having a teenager of my own, communicating with a teenager is not always easy. And it may not always seem easy. It may seem awkward or uncomfortable. Maybe there's something it's an uncomfortable topic. So communicating doesn't always have to mean communication between you and the student. It could mean communicating with your liaison. We're going to talk a little bit more specifically about the role of the AFS liaison in a little bit, but remember that there's a lot of volunteers. You've met half the room is volunteers that are here today. There's a lot of people to support you on this journey and this year, so it may not always be direct communication with your student, but please know that there's someone you can always reach out to communicate and help you with situations. Because the last thing you want is for something small to become a bigger problem. Treat your AFS participant as a member of your family, and I'm hoping that Julia certainly feels that way. I have never felt, from day 2 maybe, of her being here, that she wasn't my daughter. And it's that feeling that you have another member of your family that's partaking in all your family's activities and your family's dramas is a wonderful thing, and that helps them feel comfortable, and that'll help everybody assimilate quicker. The rules are the rules, and there's only 3 hard and fast rules, and we'll talk about them a little bit more, and I'm sure you read them when you went through the online orientation. No driving, no drugs, no hitchhiking. The driving applies to any vehicle that requires a license. So no driving, anything that requires a license, no drugs, and no hitchhiking. There are some mandatory AFS activities, and you are required to attend, or your student may be required to attend. That's why this is a good time to kind of make some connections if you need to work out some carpooling or some backup systems for picking up. There's also going to be a post-arrival orientation where you'll all get to meet each other again, and the families that are attending the second orientation, and you'll all have a chance to meet the students as well, because the students will be here, most of them by then. And although grades and maintaining a particular grade point average is not required by AFS, AFS is an academic program, and so school attendance is required. I mentioned earlier that most of this material, if not all of it, is in your host family handbook, and it's also available online. So if you have any questions like, wow, I don't remember what she said about the age requirement or something, please refer to the handbook, and all the information is there, and there's quite a bit more detail there as well. So on the next slide, just because I don't want you guys to get sick of hearing me talk, I'm going to let my husband ask you a couple questions. I was going to say, and see how well you're paying attention, but they're not on things we've talked about. They're completely out of the blue. All right, so the first question.
All right, pop quiz time. And those who've been through the orientation before, just please bear with me. All right, AFS host families are expected to provide all meals for your participant, including either a sack lunch for school days or an allowance to purchase lunch in the cafeteria. Is this true or false? True. Exactly. You have to feed your students, all right? And for those that you're getting teenage boys, watch your food allowance go up. We've had that experience. All right, we have the second one as well. Emotional highs and lows are a normal part of the cultural adjustment cycle. True or false? Absolutely. Julia can attest to that. There's going to be highs and lows, especially around the holidays, but then it becomes smooth sailing, and how much more I can say about that?
We're facing a new low now because we know Julia's going home.
Can I share a quick story about that, though?
Yeah.
Julia, this is our fourth AFS student. We did another student, a college student with another program. But I was driving Julia home from a roundtable one time, and she shared, I thought it was an insightful story. Because for us, it's always difficult when these students leave because they're going home to their families, and we lose our daughter or son. We lose, and it's really difficult, we think, for us more so than the student. But she made a great point. She said, you know, I've had my life for 16 years in Italy, and now I'm going to go back to that life. I left it for a year, but I'm going to go back to it. What she's losing is the life that she had here for 12 months that she'll never have again. I thought, wow, that's really impactful to her and powerful. She had a life here for 12 months that she'll never have again. That's really tough on these kids. So just keep that in mind as you develop this life with your child, that after 12 months, they lose this life forever. It's tough.
So there's emotional highs and lows for everybody, is the bottom line.
It's emotional.
All right, so one thing that's one of the most important things when anyone travels to a new place, certainly when I travel to a new place and for the students coming here, is to feel safe. And there's a lot you can do as a host family when the students first get here to help them feel safe. Certainly don't expect them to remember phone numbers, but write everything down. Write down all of your names, all of your phone numbers. Have them enter them in their phone right away. I know some of this is old. We were talking about that. This is obviously slides that were made before cell phones. Have them put them right in their cell phone. Maybe the name of a trusted neighbor. That first weekend they're in town, take them around if there's a neighbor that you rely on and can count on in case they get locked out of the house. What if they forget their key and you're off at work? You know, think of situations like that before they get here and try to make them feel as safe as possible when they get here, and have a plan. If they're going to take the school bus home, what do they do if they miss the bus? Where did they go? Should they call you? Should they call the neighbor? You know, who should they call and where should they go to wait? If maybe it's not safe to wait at the school, maybe they close it down and they need to go someplace else or cross the street. Or what if they're taking the city bus home and they miss their stop? Is the next stop a safe place to get off, or should they wait 2 stops? And just think through so that they feel comfortable, that they know what to do, what to expect, who to call, when to call, and if I call this person and they don't answer, who do I call next? And just so that they have a feeling and a safe plan, and write it all down. Even if they enter those numbers in the phone, they may forget the name of the neighbor. And if you forget the name, you can't look it up unless they put neighbor in the phone, and so that it'll bring it up. But think of those kinds of things to help the student have a plan so that they don't freak out, you know, I missed the bus, now I don't know what to do. And I know we all live in safe areas, but the city of Phoenix is very big, and it's very unique in a way that I think that there can be a safe neighborhood right next to an unsafe neighborhood. So make sure you talk to the student if they're used to going for walks, or they like to walk to the store. Julia likes to walk to Starbucks. Make sure that they know what route is safe, what streets to walk on, what streets to avoid if there are any in your neighborhood, and what kind of public transportation is safe in your area, what kind of public transportation is not safe. Just talk about those kinds of things, and talk about risky behavior. Maybe if they're, just like you would with your own kids, if they're at a party, what kinds of behavior to not rely on a ride home with someone if they're engaging in certain kinds of behavior. If someone seems violent or angry, or you know, maybe don't get in a car with that person. And if that's the case, who do they call? You know, depending on what time it is, you know, maybe have a plan for who they can call. It isn't unique to the United States, so be aware that they feel that they can handle peer pressure in certain situations. Talk to them just like you would talk to your own teenage child about going to maybe a party, and if the other kids are doing things that they don't agree with or that they can't be involved with, how do they handle that situation? When we were talking a little bit earlier, there was one of the notes was to have a safe word, like call your parents and have a code word if you want to be picked up. And I thought, well, that was obviously done before texting, because now you could just text. You could text and say, hey, my ride home, I don't feel is safe anymore. Could you come pick me up? But make sure you know what parent keeps their phone on. I put my phone in the kitchen at night, so if you know your child's going to a party, make sure you all agree ahead of time who's going to keep their phone on and by the bed in case they need a ride home. And you know, work with the students to see how they can help and ensure their own safety. You know, it's a lot of effort for the students to get here. They're thrilled to be here. They're excited to be here. And maybe they can get comfortable saying, you know, it was a big opportunity, and I'm so happy to be here in the United States, and I'm not going to risk it. I would be sent home. I'm not going to risk being sent home by engaging in these kinds of behaviors, so that they feel confident and comfortable with the situations that they're going to encounter. Now, a lot of students come from countries, I know almost every country we've ever traveled to has a lot of public transportation. Everyone takes the subway, everyone takes the train. Even little kids take the trains by themselves. So it's different here. We don't have as good of public transportation. I know we have one light rail that goes, you know, one street in the city. Otherwise, you have to look at buses and some other kinds of public transportation. So it may be very different here than what the students used to in their own country. All right, I already mentioned the 3 rules, so I think we're good on these. No driving anything that has a license, no drugs, and no hitchhiking.
Is it no driving alone or no driving at all?
No driving anything that requires a license. They cannot operate a vehicle. They cannot operate a vehicle.
Okay, so if they have license from home and someone sits next to them?
No.
No, not at all?
No, not at all. So no operating a vehicle that requires a license. No boats, you know, no motorcycles, no cars. Now what's missing from up here that you think, wow, that's a surprise?
Drinking.
Drinking, alcohol. Exactly. I was kind of surprised. I didn't see it either. But AFS is the students and the participants in the program are required to follow the law. And what's the drinking age in the state of Arizona? 21. So that's going to be different. I noticed several of you said you had a student coming from Germany. So it's going to be different. If they're over 16, maybe they can already drink beer at home, but they have to follow the local laws, which is the drinking age here is 21 and over. All right, now travel. There's a lot of travel that you'll probably want to do when your student gets here. local travel, either around the state to Sedona. God, we have just so much to see here in Arizona. You don't even have to leave the state. You could go to the Grand Canyon, Sedona, Prescott, Flagstaff. Interstate travel, going to California. A lot of people like to go to California. It's close, it's easy, you can get to the beach. And some travel, no travel is necessarily a problem, but some travel requires, as you can see on the far right, some approval. Some travel requires approval from the AFS USA, some requires only local approval, some requires maybe approval from the natural parents and the natural country, the AFS sending country. So the best advice I can give you is to plan your travel as far in advance as you can. Let your liaison know as soon as you are planning travel, and even if it's just to Sedona for the weekend, let your liaison know. AFS really needs to know where you are, where the students are at all times. And it used to be a bigger deal before cell phones because you wouldn't be reachable, unless somebody knew where you were, knew what hotel you were at. But even with cell phones and the ability to get a hold of someone, they really need to know where the students are at all times. So just let your liaison know, we're going to Sedona for the weekend, we're going to California. And then international travel does require quite a bit more approval and time to gauge that approval. So as far in advance as you possibly can for any kind of travel out of state or out of the country, to let your liaison know and make sure you have the right approval and the right forms filled out. Now, all of that being said, you are not expected to travel. You're not tour guides, and so don't feel any pressure to, show your student around, every city they've ever wanted to go to. But certainly it is a fun thing to travel and go around the United States. Did you have anything to add on that?
The only piece that I would add to travel is, the first thing I would say is always just let your liaison know. And in addition to telling the liaison where you're planning a trip, if it's not you planning the trip, if it's maybe a school trip or maybe a close family friend, your liaison also needs to know who the student's traveling with, because that can change the approval process. If you are taking them somewhere in the United States, if their family is taking them somewhere, then the liaison has to know there's no approval process needed. But the liaison just needs to know we're going to be in Florida for spring break. But other travel, there's a process, and it's usually very simple, but the liaison needs to know. So that's just what I would say to you. Just reach out to your liaison. Let them know. Yeah.
The other thing, sometimes you wonder why all of this. There was an earthquake in Chile a number of years ago, and they had just a certain number of hours where they knew their cell phones and everything was going to run out. They were going to have no electricity. So it was a case of they just wanted to be able, the natural families, to let their kids know they were okay. And so that's why they had such a limited amount of time. They needed to know how to be able to get a hold of their child, just to reassure them the family was fine. So, or a grandparent dies. We've had that happen. They want to be able to maybe tell you as the host mom, we're going to be making this call and this is what's coming up, just so you could be prepared to help with the emotional, embracing that child needing extra support. So it's not like any big brother thing. It's personal things, and that's why we do it. It's not trying to infringe on you as a family.
And Nancy did bring up a good point about independent travel. There may be occasions where a group of students from the high school or something want to go up to Prescott for the weekend. And that has very different requirements than it would be if you were traveling with the student. And those are all spelled out very specifically, with the age of the student needs to be, there needs to be someone over 25 in the group. And so it's all spelled out in the AFS Family Handbook, but there are some differences. So as soon as you can know about your travel or plans, to contact your liaison and make sure things are appropriately taken care of. Hey, welcome. We have another volunteer that just joined us.
Thank you. My name's Karen Powers, and I hosted twice. I hosted a girl from Austria and a girl from Germany, and I just met up in Paris with the girl I hosted from Austria 12 years ago, just last week. So it's been a wonderful experience.
Welcome. So,
Excuse me.
yes.
Got a quick question. If we do air travel, are there any forms or anything stating that we are in charge of this child since the names are going to be different, going through security and whatnot?
I don't think, I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when, before a student comes here, the natural parents do sign a form that says, I think it's called the parental authorization. And
It's in the application.
Yes, it's in the student's application saying that, that they authorize the student to be on the AFS program and to be with a host family. I believe it's in this form is in the packet that you received, is it still in there? At arrival. When the student arrives and you go pick up the student, there'll be a lot of excitement and you'll be handed a packet which you will go home and put somewhere and forget about. So, which we totally understand. But just know that that packet has a lot of information that you might need, and one of the things in that is that parental authorization form signed by their natural parents.
Well, and that gives you the authorization to sign forms on behalf of the student, you know, like a participation form or a waiver for them to go on a field trip with the school. You're signing, and it's that same form that gives you that authorization to do that as well.
Okay, thank you.
And then the one thing on the form, it'll say parent or guardian, and AFS encourages you to strike that out and write host parent. But you will have that authorization. It's also medical too, Nancy, isn't there? If there's an emergency, that sheet also, the natural family has signed off saying that you have authorization. You know, we've had kids who've had to have appendectomies. Well, that's your piece of paper when you go in that authorizes you to get that
It's
time.
probably a good idea to take a picture of that form. And
Just have it on your phone, that's a great idea.
And if you have the full application, if hosting has sent you your full application, it should be included in that. But what we have volunteers have found out, when you want it and you need it and you're in that pressing moment, we provide it outside of the application. It's the same thing if you go through the application you've been sent from hosting. I think it is the Form 6, and it is parental authorization.
Yeah, about travel to Mexico.
Okay, so travel to Mexico and Canada is of course international travel. And a student can only travel to those countries if they travel with a host family member. I think it's a host family member over the age of 25. So if a friend, a neighbor, like your best friend, invites your daughter and the AFS exchange daughter to go to Mexico with the friend's family, they cannot go. Okay, they have to go with a family member who's over 25. International travel needs to be approved and authorized through the AFS USA office in New York and in the country that sent the student here. It's a process we have to go through. It's not complicated, but it takes a bit more time. So if you know that there's international travel planned, some students have been lucky enough for their host families to take them on to other places other than Canada and Mexico. Just let your liaison know and we'll start the process. And then I'll just say this one other piece. When your student goes to another country with you, it's fine for them to leave the United States. When they come back, they have to have those approval forms with them. If they don't, they'll be stopped at the border, okay? So I suggest, they're teenagers, I suggest that that form, which as far as I know was and probably still is a two-part form, that you hold on to that two-part form, okay? Because sometimes very responsible teenagers, even responsible ones, will lose one of those two pieces and they will be stopped at the border. You'll be allowed through, but they won't. And then you'll be calling the support people to try to get you a copy of it. Okay? So, but it's really not complicated. It's just a process. And sometimes I know that it can be frustrating that there are rules and there's a process, but remember that these are teenagers and their natural families need to know that they're safe. And that's a responsibility that the State Department and we take really seriously. So that's why there's a process.
There's one other piece on here that I forgot to mention. In the corner you can see it says Bello USA. That it's an organization, it's not AFS, but it collaborates with AFS and provides travel opportunities There's several trips that are planned during common spring break time for across the US, and then there's some trips that are planned in June when the students are out of school, but prior to going home. And some of them are amazing. One of our students did go on the Bello trip to Hawaii over to spring break. And they're kind of expensive. I mean, there depends, everyone has a different idea of what's expensive, but they certainly cost a considerable amount of money. So it might be something that you want to talk to the student about. There was trips during spring break offered through Bello that went to New York City or New York, Philadelphia, and Boston. You know, there was a couple of trips, and if it's something they might be interested in, they might need to talk to their parents early on in the year to budget for that if it's something that they want to plan on. So it might be worth at least talking about kind of early on in the year and letting the student know about those opportunities. I'm not sure how they get the information about the Bello travel. Where's that
It's sent out to all of the participants
Okay.
by email. But not all students look at their email. So just, if you think it's something your students might be interested in because maybe you can't take them to places they want to see, then have them check with their liaison. It usually comes out in December. And again, I know you said it, but I just want to say it again. You are not expected to pay for that travel. That would be travel that their natural family would be expected to pay for.
And really, any travel. If your family is planning a trip to Hawaii, you could ask for help on the airfare for the student to travel for a big trip. So it's something that you can certainly talk about and work out with the natural family. All right. That brings us to the first day. This is the most exciting time. I remember I'm always super excited to meet the student. We've been communicating via email. I'm assuming most of you have, those of you that have a assigned student, you probably already communicate with them. And there's lots of things to do, and you're going to remember a lot of things that we're talking about today. I want to write everything down. I want to give them all these phone numbers. And it's going to be super overwhelming for the student. They just traveled some over 24 hours, and they all go to Los Angeles first and then come from LA here. They've gone through an orientation of their own before you come to pick them up. So sometimes it's good if when you pick them up in the afternoon to kind of keep it a little simple. Everyone's going to be excited, but they're going to be exhausted. And maybe instead of flooding way too much information on them the first day, kind of keep it a nice, simple first day. I think a lot of students want to see where they're going to be going to school, so maybe drive by the school, show them where they're going to be going to school, and maybe go out to eat. We always go to the same place, and you'd be thrilled to know we always take our students to Hillstone on the first night, and just it's kind of our little place to go. And then go home, show them the room, and give them some time to settle in. So it's an exciting time, but maybe just keep it a little simple. And like I said, the students are exhausted, and you're going to be excited, because you're not as exhausted as they are, and you're super excited. And most people, when they're excited, they talk faster. And so I think as in a group of people, the Americans talk fast anyway. So it'll be good to remember to speak a little slowly, that everything you're saying, they're going to translate, and then they have to translate their reply, and they're going to be exhausted. So at least for the first few weeks or for the first few days, be mindful of that, that if something is important, write it down. That way I think it's easier to understand a written language than it is to hear it. And that way they have it to look back and refresh their memory. So something's important about what time to get up for school or what time to be ready because the bus leaves, write it down in addition to mentioning it. And know that they're going to need a lot of sleep the first few days because of the jet lag, the time difference, the exhaustion, and the heat. You know, this is going to be really different for a lot of students. And I know, Julie, you were the same. You're not used to drinking that much water that we need here. So air travel is always dehydrating, the climate here is so dry and hot in August when they get here, so make sure they have lots of time to rest and lots of time to have plenty of water. But it's a fine balance, because if you think, oh, I'm just gonna give them lots of time to rest, and you leave them in their room while you guys are all out in the living room watching TV and playing games or doing whatever you do, they might feel a little left out. So it's a good time to have a good communication and talk and let them know you're gonna give them some nice quiet evenings, and maybe as a family as a whole, you could just kind of keep it quiet and stay home for the first few days. All right, there is a participant and host family questionnaire in your packets. And I have to say, to be totally honest and transparent, the first time we hosted, I thought, well, we're not gonna need to do that. You know, we're good enough communicators that we can talk about what's important in our household and how our household rules are and how we do things. We're not gonna need something formal to sit down. But then when we did, because I attended this orientation just like you guys are, and they said to do this, it was really eye-opening. Now, some of the questions are outdated, as somebody mentioned when we got here and we were just chatting beforehand, before cell phones or before, texting. But it really made me think, I didn't even realize we did things the way we do things. I never thought of it. It never occurred to me. Half the questions on there, I thought, I've never thought of that. I never thought, what do we do on a Saturday morning? What do we typically do? And how would that be perceived by somebody else? What do we do on a Saturday afternoon? Well, I always go into the office and work. And Paul likes to work on his car. Well, what are they gonna do? If we're all doing our own thing, what are they gonna do, especially initially? So it really was an interesting look at your family and how you guys do things, what do we do on a Saturday morning? Who does the dishes? We never talked about that before, but once I had the opportunity to talk about it, it brings up conversations that you probably wouldn't think to have. So I would highly encourage everybody to review it and wait a day or two. I mean, it doesn't have to be something you drill down into the first day that they're there, but maybe that first weekend. It's a fun thing. We went out and we, just instead of sitting around the house and doing, we went out to a neat place and we all sat down and Paul and I got a glass of wine and we all went through the questionnaire together. And it's a good idea to maybe review it a couple weeks later. Maybe you thought, if you were like me, there would be things you didn't think of, like that. I never thought about that. I don't really know. I don't really know what I want you to call me. Do I want you to call me Mom, or do I want you to call me Laura? So maybe revisit some of the things a couple weeks later after you've had a chance to all be together and the student's not so exhausted. And if you write down your answers, or the student writes them down as you go, it gives them something to look back at, because they're not going to remember what you talked about on the first day or the second day that they were there. It's a really helpful tool. And add your own questions or statements about your house and how things are run if you'd like to. We talked a little bit about adjustments. I think the biggest adjustment for Arizona is the climate. This is just outstanding. It's ridiculously hot, and in August it can actually be even a little humid. And I think that's going to be a big adjustment for most students coming from most other countries, especially someone said they have a student coming from Finland. And it's going to be a real shock how hot it is here. And they might not have packed the right clothes. I don't know how you necessarily know, because you can't anticipate how uncomfortably warm it's going to be. So make sure they have, if I said that enough, make sure they have enough water. But there's going to be other adjustments too. There's going to be things that they're worried about, just like you're worried about. They're going to be worried about making friends, going to a school that's very different than their own, and not knowing people, and adjusting to your family. They're going to want to make you happy. They want you to like them. So it's going to be a lot of time of change for everybody, not just the student. So some things to remember as you're going through the adjustments, that It's easier for most people where English is their second language to interpret and understand the written language rather than verbal. So if something's important, again, write it down. Talk about simple rules of your house. Maybe do you have no cell phone policy at the table, the dinner table? Maybe you have no cell phones after 9 o'clock. Everyone has to turn in their cell phones. Maybe what to do with laundry. Again, it's just those simple things that you don't even think about. Well, we don't really have a process, do we? Well, you have to have a process. You have to have something that you can tell them. Otherwise, they don't know what to do with their dirty clothes, or do they have to do their own laundry, or will you do it, or do you do it once a week? So just kind of start thinking about those things. And if it's important, write it down. But make sure you talk and talk and talk about all that kind of stuff, because it may not seem important. Oh, I don't mind. If they, don't know what to do with their laundry, I'll just take care of it. But it's that kind of thing that maybe could eat away at you 6 months in when you're thinking, I have to do all the laundry. So it's always important, no matter how small something might seem, to talk about it right from the start and not let little things become big things. It seems like I have a fixation on laundry, but it's not. It's just how I see the picture that's up there. All right, so the next little section, we're gonna change it up, and instead of me talking to you, I'm gonna have our student, Julia, share a little bit with you what it was like for her. So from a student perspective, we've been talking a lot from a host-parent perspective, and I think it'll really help you to hear from a student perspective.
Hi everyone, I'm Julia, I'm from Italy, and I've been hosted by Laura, my mom, Paul, my dad, and Lily, my sister right there. Hi. So, okay, the year is almost over, so I have like 2 weeks, and it's like everything's really confusing because I think like back in time, and it seems like yesterday that I first got here, and it was really, really hot. The first thing, I remember when we first stepped out of the airport, I had friends from Finland, Norway. The first thing we thought was like, oh my God, I cannot do this. That was really, really, really hot. But then you kind of get used to it, slowly, but eventually you will. So being an exchange student has been the best thing ever for me, the best opportunity it's the best thing that someone can have. And this year has been the best year of my life, but at the same time, the hardest one. Because being an exchange student it's the best thing ever, but you have some, like as Dad said earlier, kind of like sad days and happy days. Because I remember when I first got the email that told me that I was going to be an exchange student, I was really, really happy. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to the US. The land where everything's possible, like we see in the movies and TV shows, like High School Musical, and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna do that. And then when I got here, because I didn't realize what I was doing, what was going on until I actually got here. I decided to do the year, because I first wanted to do 3 months. So I decided to do the year just a few months before doing it. So it was different. And when I first got here, I was like, cool, I'm here. Now what? It's after the first day of high school, first day of school, that an exchange student actually realizes what is going on. Because during the first day, you're like, you go back home, you're sitting on your bed, and you think, you're like, okay, first day of school was hard. I don't understand the language. It's really, really hard because I'm not going to see my family for 10 months. I'm not going to see my friends. I'm here with a new family that I don't know yet. And I have no friends because you're not going to have friends for the entire first week because probably language, and people have known each other in high school since 4th or 5th grade. So it's really, really hard to get to know people. And so the first week is the hardest week ever. It's really, really hardest week. After it, everything gets better because you start to go for it. Because I remember I didn't have any friends. I was so sad because I always have a lot of friends. And then I got here, I was by myself. I was like, oh, I don't like it. So the first Friday, I just went for it. I had some kids in my art class and I just went talking to them, and they actually became my best friends. So one advice that you guys should say to your exchange students, just go for it. Don't be scared, don't be shy, and just go for it. And say yes to anything. If someone asks you to hang out, just say yes and go. Just go for it. And so when you have those like really, really sad days, you understand during the first week, you know that you're by yourself. You realize that you're alone. Because you have a new family, you have friends back from your country, your real family, but no one can understand you. No one can understand what you're going through except for other exchange students. And we're so lucky that we have round tables. I don't know if you know what a round table is. Do you guys all know what is it? No.
We haven't talked about it yet.
Yeah, Mom is gonna talk about it later. But round table is a meeting with a group of exchange students from the same area. And it's a meeting, it's monthly. And exchange students get a chance to go. We did the round table at Nancy's house and with Beth. And my round table, we were 10 initially, and then we became 9. But it's the best thing ever for an exchange student. Because it's like kind of like a safe place, because you get a chance to talk, to share everything that's going on, to cry, to laugh, and to help each other. Because they're the only one can truly understand you. And I'm so lucky. I think I'm really, really lucky because my round table was the best round table ever, and you guys know. And we were really, really close. We would hang out even out of the round tables, and they become your best friends because they're just amazing. And during the last round table, we talked about things that we wish we would have done and tips for new families that are gonna host next year. So I have some, and I'm gonna read them to you. So, okay. So the first one is dinner conversation. That is a moment where you can share what thoughts and what your day was with your exchange students, which is awesome for an exchange student to talk about how the day went and to feel like parents are interested in what they're going through. And then support your student by attending their games and activities. That is a great way to show your student that you really appreciate what they're doing and to be happy for them. And, exchange students are sad. Okay, there are some days where exchange students are really sad, maybe for no reason, and they maybe don't talk or they're just really sad by themselves. It's not because they don't like you guys. It's just not for that. It's just because exchange year is like really hard and happy at the same time. So it's really confusing. So it could happen. And one of the most important things is get your student to join sports and clubs. That's the best way to make friends. That's really the best way. I remember that I first joined volleyball and then cheer, which was really new for me. It was really, really new and weird. Yeah, it was really cool because I didn't know anything about cheer, and then I became the first flyer, and that was crazy. That was really crazy, but it was so much fun, and I made a lot of friends. I made some that now they're my closest friends ever, and I'm really gonna miss them a lot. And I also joined ice skating. So ice skating is a great thing in Arizona. It's cold and chill, and outside it's really hot, so during the summer, go ice skating. That's awesome. Yes.
You said that there are some days where you get sad and it's not about the family or anything. What should the family do on those days? Do you leave you alone, try to talk to you? What would you guys like us to do when those days when you're sad?
Ice skating.
Ice skating.
That's a great idea. So I think the best thing to do is just conversation. I mean, sometimes there are those days that are really, really bad, that people just want to be by themselves. That happen to everyone. But I think the best thing is to talk. Just talk and maybe do I don't know, go watch a movie or do something with the whole family. So the exchange can feel like love. And yeah, go out for dinner. I don't know. I got a chance to go out for dinner probably in each restaurant in Phoenix. Telling everyone. And that was awesome. So, yeah, that is true. But, so, yeah, that's it, I think.
Well, and the ideas that the students worked on that Julia mentioned for what she wishes or what they wish the host parents knew and what they wish they had known when they came, that's in your folder also. So there's a little sheet, and that's really thank you to the students from her roundtable group that put their minds and ideas together to put that in there for you.
Thank you, Nancy, who wrote everything down. Thank you. We were talking in the past. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so expectations. Expectations are a lot like opinions. Everybody has one. And I think a big part of any new activity is managing expectations. You might have an expectation, I'm going to get a babysitter for a year, or you might have an expectation as a host sibling, I'm going to have someone to hang out with for the year. I'm going to have someone to go ice skating with. And you never know, because the students coming with their own thoughts and expectations as well. So it's a good idea to kind of keep your expectations in check and just have no idea what's going to happen and love it. Just be open to whatever happens and welcoming whatever is coming your way. Because sometimes the reality can be very different than the expectation. All right, you're back up.
All right, some more difficult questions here. Host siblings of similar ages will become best friends, true or false? False. The best you can hope for is that they will become best siblings, which means they're going to argue, they're going to like each other, they're going to be true siblings. Best you can hope for, which is really good, actually. AFS discourages natural parents from visiting their children while in the U.S. True or false?
True.
True, exactly. And I know this year there's been an uptick in some of those visits, which is very disruptive, and I don't know if you want to speak to that at all as far as what we're trying to do.
Yeah, AFS does discourage the natural families from coming, but everybody travels all over the world now. It's not so unusual for someone to have a business trip here or want to take their whole family on vacation here, and so you might get that message from the natural family that, oh, we're going to be in Phoenix for spring break. When that happens, call your liaison, and we will talk to you about it. You know, as a host parent, do you think that will be too disruptive? As a host parent, do you think it's a great idea? I advise that you definitely not host a natural family. If a family comes to visit and you think it's a good idea and your student's okay with it, then say, but you know, you have to stay in a hotel. We're not your hotel. We will help guide you through that. It's again another process. Again, it's discouraged. We will maybe try to convince them to come at the end of the year when school is out, a month before the kids go home, and it's hot, and you may need something for your student to do. We will work with you on it, but know that if you don't think it's a good idea, and sometimes you don't, because when a student's natural parents, if they come, the student will go back to speaking their native language, and that could cause aggression in the progress they've made in becoming immersed in our culture, in our language. There's lots of things to talk about. So the message really is, if you get that message that the natural family is coming to visit, please reach out to your liaison, and then we'll work with you, we'll talk with you and see if it's a good idea. You don't have to be the bad guy. If you don't think it's a great time, if you don't think it's a good idea, we will help with that, okay?
Julia, you raised your hand. Did you want to say something about siblings?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
She's not here, so you can say whatever you want.
so siblings are gonna fight. It doesn't mean they're gonna argue a lot. It doesn't mean that they don't like each other. I mean, most of the times it's not that. But because they're siblings, they get to know each other, get to live together, so they're gonna be real siblings. And they're gonna fight. We fight. But I love Lily. Because I feel like we're really, really different. But we got to know each other a lot, and we're like real sisters, so we do fight. And there are some days that I really cannot see her, but I love her much. But yes, so expect that.
It works. The dominant communication style in the U.S. is indirect. True or false?
I don't even agree with this answer, so.
Then what's the answer?
What do you guys think?
The answer is maybe.
There you go.
This is, I didn't make these slides, but I don't know that that's true.
Indirect.
Here's other cultures. Cultures don't always say what they're really thinking.
Yes.
And that's a problem, because when you have other cultures come in and you ask a student, would you like to do this? And they say no, or do you like this? And they say no. Sometimes Americans are offended. They're used to people trying to placate and be much more, oh, sure, I like that. So that's where communication lines can get crossed, is Americans compared to the rest of the world aren't super direct.
Exactly, which is, I don't agree with this. I think we do have a lot of indirect communication. We don't say what we mean all the time. And so different communication styles definitely can cause some friction. Well, at least I got the conversation going.
I was just going to add on that, those culture grams can be really helpful about how kids in the country that you're hosting, how they communicate, because it really is different. Thailand, Finland, I mean,
yeah.
It isn't that one's maybe more direct, but they so.
They all have a culture gram, yes.
Yeah,
In
in
your
your
packet.
folders, by country, there is a culture grant, and it's going to be 8, 7, 8, 9 pages. And it talks about communications, language, the language they use, the lifestyle, and as Lois pointed out, it's a good starting point. It makes you think, so.
Because you're not going to change your own communication style. They're going to adapt to you, but nevertheless, you kind of know where they're coming from. Yeah.
All right, so it's another word that has lots of meanings, but we're going to take a break.